Welcome to Pages and Pods. This episode is about John Anthony West and the Serpent in the Sky. A key inspiration for my trip to Egypt was from the late John Anthony West. In fact, his book titled The Traveler's Key to Ancient Egypt was essential for my journey. Unlike other travel guides, West's book incorporates his mystical understanding of each temple site into his detailed descriptions. After returning home, I took a much deeper dive into his journey of discovery of the ancient Egyptian mysteries to compare them with my own. West was a complicated man, a writer, a cynic, and a lifelong seeker of cosmological truth. His most astonishing book, Serpent in the Sky, details his understanding of the esoteric works of Rene Schwaller de Lubitz, probably the only person who truly understood the knowledge attained by the ancient Egyptians as to the mechanics of creation and life. But West can only be partially understood by his books because he was constantly seeking confirmation of his understanding and searching deeper for new knowledge. I believe he found his answers and concealed them in his heart. They can be found in his lectures and interviews, often as pearls of wisdom interlaced with endless criticisms, puns, and speculation. He began his mystical journey delving into Hermeticism and astrology, a claim he makes in a lecture. In his own words, he was directed to a book by Rene Schwaller's wife, Isha. Acknowledging her book, titled Her Bach, delighted me because it was Isha's book that brought me into a fascination with Egyptian mysteries. West was not a fan of her literary style, but acknowledges that Isha's footnotes and bibliography points to the marvelous discovery of her husband, who West admired to such a degree that he studied French just to read The Temple of Man, a treatise on the sacred math and science woven into the structure of the Temple of Luxor. It would be presumptuous of me to say that I understand John Anthony West. I doubt even his closest associates ever knew him. But I can point out several of his pearls of wisdom found in his books and lectures that are influencing my own journey into the cosmological secrets held in the myths and architecture of the Egyptian temples. First, if you get a copy of Serpent in the Sky, turn to the selected bibliography before reading the book. This is foundational to understanding his ontology. It begins with all the works of Rene Schwaller de Lubitz. He read them all in French to grasp Rene's mind. He comments on many of his citations, and one comment about Schwaller stands out as an example of West's way of critique. Regarding Schwaller's book concerning esotericism and symbol, he writes, "A slender volume defining the precise manner in which Schwaller de Lubitz treats these generally woolly and ill-defined subjects." In fact, West's lectures, available on YouTube, cover up his deep and critical comprehension of the Egyptian mysteries with humor and sarcasm. It's only in his footnotes and offhand remarks that we discover his true understanding. I was surprised to find Bija Reed's book, Rebel in the Soul, in the list. I first read Reed's book over 40 years ago. He explains a hieroglyphic manuscript read by initiates who wrestled with the contradictions of a world filled with greed and despair, with their personal understanding of harmony and salvation. It's a dialogue between the initiate and the soul, where the soul explains that life must be endured to understand existence after death. It's foundational to all existential inquiry. I never heard West discuss this book, but like so many of his insights, the inclusion of this reference in his bibliography provides a hidden key to unlocking his personal inner struggles. In his early days, West was strongly influenced by Gurdjieff and Ouspensky, who presented inner meaning as a quest to understand symbols, numbers, music, movement, and cosmological law. West frequently compared the harmonious understanding of nature as understood by the Egyptian priests to the musical compositions of Beethoven, whom he quotes saying, "Music is a higher revelation than philosophy." He used musical and artistic analogy to understand Schwaller's mathematics of harmony and proportion. West also calls to your imagination Hindu temples, Chartres Cathedral, and Beethoven scores to show how symbolic structures communicate through proportion and resonance beyond what descriptive language can express. West explains the title of his book in a chapter by the same name, Serpent in the Sky. He challenges the reader into a vision of duality where opposition is essential for harmony. In several lectures, he explains the harmony between Set, a representation of chaos, and Horus, the principle of order and revelation. There can be no insight without overcoming a challenge. Opposition quickens the mind. The serpent in the sky represents the duality of Egypt, the cobra of the north and the vulture of the south. The cobra is synthesis, the vulture is reconciliation. Both contain duality. Both bring two distinctive oppositions into one. West describes his journey in words unmatched by any other adept of Egyptology. He explained that death marks the end of the soul's journey through life. As he puts it, the body always returns to the worm, but the soul goes on to one of two destinies: the path of Osiris, which leads to resurrection and continuous rebirth, and the path of Horus, that leads to eternal redemption, where the soul returns to the realm of creation. This is the pharaonic representation of the cosmic man, who returns to the stars, becoming a door into the heavenly realm. West was a master of reading metaphors, and his explanation of the Naturu and the animals used to represent cosmic principles will unmask the delusional idea that the ancient Egyptians simply worshipped animals. His words will explain how they comprehended the relationship between creation and the human soul through deep analogy. Furthermore, he mentions, only in passing, a reference made by Rene Schwaller about sacred geometry. This was a subject he tried to tackle before his death. As a geographer, the subject of my first 2 degrees, I'm inspired by his brief passage. Just as the Temple of Luxor is a map of the human body and an architecture devoted to preserving the cosmic understanding of the human with Earth's cosmic destiny, the geographic layout of ancient Egypt may itself have been a roadmap to understanding the principles of the Creator. Each temple was dedicated to a particular god or divine principle, and their placement wasn't arbitrary. Each one was situated at a site of divine resonance. The nomes, or provinces of Egypt, were demarcated to both a cosmic principle and a particular human organ. Each organ represents a quality of spiritual being, a correspondence remarkably similar to traditional Chinese medicine. For example, the heart not only represents the divine intelligence of the soul, but is actually the progenitor of the intelligence. From this comes Schwaller's phrase, follow the intelligence of the heart. West likened it to the chakras of Hinduism. But through West's work, I recognize a parallel with Chinese medicine where the heart houses the Shen, the being and spirit of consciousness, the governing intelligence moving from the heart to the brain. And perhaps there are more cross-cultural connections. The rose, the heart, the cross. What do you think? Sadly, John Anthony West is no longer with us, and he left so much unanswered. He left us with an illuminated path built in part on the work of Rene Schwaller, but he greatly expanded our understanding of Egyptian cosmology through his extensive and detailed journey into Egyptian resonance, architecture, and form. Be inspired to search for his lectures. I left a few links below. If you find something, come back and leave a comment. I'd like to know what you found. Subscribe so we can stay in contact. And most importantly, follow the intelligence of your heart. It will lead you to amazing journeys.